Shalom Uvracha. We continue in Hilchot Avodah Zarah v'Chukot HaGoyim. The Rabbeinu Agadol, Rabbeinu Moshe Ben Maimun, Zichrono Livracha. Before we continue in Perek Hamishi, Perek Hey, let us recap what we saw in the last Halacha of Halacha Dalet. The last Halacha in Perek Dalet states, Kol ha'oseh din me'ir hanidachath, he who faithfully implements this halacha of ir hanidachath, which involves destroying a town, a Jewish town in Eretz Yisrael, that worshipped where most of the inhabitants worshipped Avodah Zarah. Arezeh k'makriv ola kalil. Such a person is considered to have offered a korban, an olah to Hashem. This is a drasha on the words of the pasuk in this context of ir hanidachath in Devarim, where it speaks about committing the city or the town to the flames. Kalil l'Adonai Elohecha. It is to be completely consumed, like an olah. So Hazar or Doresh, that this is like bringing a korban olah. Now the aim of this statement clearly is to convey a very important notion that we should not be deterred from performing this mitzvah of ir hanidachath, even though it clearly involves destruction and violence. It's most of the inhabitants are put to the sword. Nevertheless, we should know that this is necessary and therefore the correct thing to do. And this is what the Torah instructs us to do and demands of us. Rambam continues, V'lo od ela shemesalek haron af mi'Yisrael. And by so doing, we remove and we protect Am Yisrael from haron af Hashem, from Hashem's anger, because Avodah Zarah is, as we know, a cause of tremendous puranuth, punishment and anger from Hashem towards Am Yisrael. Shene'emar, as it states, L'ma'an Yeshua Adonai meharon apo. That also is stated in the Furash, explicitly in the Psukim. U'mevi alehem baracha v'rahamim. More than that, not only is it an act of self-defense in many ways, which it is, and not only is it an act of din, of punishment, of dealing with strict justice, dealing with those who brought about such a reality within Am Yisrael, which is unforgivable. Furthermore, mevi alehem baracha v'rahamim. It brings baracha, blessing, and rahamim, and mercy for Hashem, for Am Yisrael. Shenemar v'nathan lecha rahamim v'richamecha v'hirbecha. And we mentioned what Rambam writes, and we'll quote it again very quickly. In Hilchot Sanhedrin, Perek Yod Aleph, the 11th chapter of Hilchot Sanhedrin, Rambam writes here in Perek Yod Aleph, Hilchot Sanhedrin, Halacha Zayin, that the Masif, he who incites and encourages Jews to worship Avodah Zarah, to turn away from Hashem, to turn away from the Torah. Such people are to be dealt with in the legal sense without mercy. We did not go out of our way to prevent the execution of such individual as we do with other capital offenses. And then Rambam continues at the end of this halacha, and he says, "Sha'achzariyuth al elu shemat'im et ha'am ahar ha'hever," being extremely harsh, one could even say cruel or ruthless, towards those who lead people astray, who lead Am Yisrael astray, which is what happened in this case. You had an entire town, the majority of whom at least were led astray and were caused to do this terrible, dastardly deed of Avodah Zarah, b'ratzon, willingly, of their own volition, publicly. So it's also a Hilul Hashem. So acting in such a way towards those who lead the people astray, rahamim hi ba'olam. It is not cruelty, it is in fact mercy. In other words, it is an act of kindness towards whom? Towards the people, towards the public, towards Am Yisrael, towards Klal Yisrael, because then they will not be punished for these actions if they turn a blind eye, if they say it's not my business, it's not my problem, then Am Yisrael will be judged very harshly. That's why the pasuk states, as Rambam quotes here, "She'ne'emar lema'an yashuv Adonai meharon apo u'nathan lecha rahami." We saw this last time as well, and these ideas are so central and important to an authentic understanding of the Torah that it definitely bears being repeated. I also want to share with you something else briefly which touches upon this. But first I will call up something else. I refer to what we find in the Mishneh in Masechet Barachot at the end. The Mishneh appears on Daf Nun Daled Amud Aleph in the Talmud Bavli. First, let us look at you should be able to see here. The Mishnah here states a general rule that we thank Hashem and acknowledge that everything comes from Hashem, whether we're referring to that which to us seems negative, something we would have preferred perhaps that not happen. That's Ra'ah. As we thank Hashem and bless Him for those things which we perceive as being good. Our perceptions, of course, are not necessarily correct. That which a person views as bad may, in fact, for many reasons, be good, turn out to be good. Now, later, it's impossible for a human being to know exactly. But Hashem knows, and we thank Hashem for and connect ourselves to Hashem and accept Hashem's will in all respects. But this is learnt from the pasuk Shene'emar V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavecha v'chol nafshecha v'chol me'odecha. This drasha is the drasha of Rabbi Meir, which appears in the Tosefta. And Rabbi Meir explained v'chol levavecha v'shnei yisarecha v'yasa tov v'yasa ra v'chol nafshecha afilu hu noteret nafshecha v'chol me'odecha v'chol memonach. We concentrate here, we focus here on the first statement, v'chol levavecha v'shnei yisarecha, that one must love and serve Hashem v'yasa tov or v'yasa ra. Now the obvious question, which Rabbeinu Yonah, the Rif brings this statement, of course, and because it has, as we're about to see, it's a general rule, which is relevant and pertinent to various halachot and situations. It's not simply a vague philosophical idea. It has practical applications, this idea, as we're about to see. The Rif brings it, and Ben Yonah says the following. Now I will share with you. I hope you'll be able to see what Rabbeinu Yonah here states. Etc. Avodah, this is a Talmid of Rabbeinu Yonah who writes this in his name. Avodah Yasser Hatov, serving Hashem with the Yasser Hatov, is Asiyat HaMiswa, is doing the Miswah of the Torah. That's serving Hashem by Yasser Hatov. In other words, accepting Malchut Shammai, which is what we accept in general. That's the foundation of being a Torah Jew, and that's what we express twice a day when we recite Kriyat Shema. And that's Avodat Hashem B'Yasser HaTov. V'Avodat Yasser Hara hu sheyichbosh Yithro hamitgaber alo. And worshipping Hashem and serving Hashem, doing Hashem's will by way of the Yasser Hara, which lichora is not possible. It's the opposite of serving Hashem, to allow oneself to be directed by the Yasser Hara, by the evil inclination, by one's baser instincts. So the first perush is Avodat Yasser Hara hu sheyichbosh Yithro hamitgaber alo. Zohi Avodah Shilo. In other words, when it says to worship Hashem by Yasser Hara, it means with regards to the Yasser Hara. Not that you can use the Yasser Hara to worship Hashem, but you must deal with and you must deal with those aspects of one's inner being, one's soul, one's various drives. One must overcome those when they are not in accordance with Hashem's will. מה שהאדם יכול, וזוהי העבודה שלו, מה שהאדם יכול לעבוד לבורא ויסר הרע. And this is how a person can serve Hashem with regards to the Yasser Hara. In other words, by overcoming it, not being led astray by it. Which is the exact opposite of what we've been learning here in these halachot with regards to Irhani Dahat. Where here people allowed themselves to be led astray and to follow their Yetzer. And there is a great Yetzer of Avodah Zarah. Within Am Yisrael, it is much weaker today than it was in the past. But it also today takes on different forms. Avodah Zarah is foreign worship of Hashem. But it is not, in truth, it is not limited to worshipping an idol or this or that religion or what have you. Adopting all kinds of non-Torah ideologies and thoughts and approaches to various things, even using non-Torah terminologies can lead to this. Adopting any such thing is analogous to Avodah Zarah. So let's say a Jew who does not worship any foreign god or any foreign form of religion, because let's say they will say they don't believe in God at all. That doesn't mean that a person cannot fall within the purview of these halachot, of this concept of Irhani Dahat. A person who, instead of a Torah ideology, adopts some kind of what is known today as some kind of woke ideology, for example. That not only is it no better than Avodah Zarah, it is in many ways worse. And it's even Volozhin, if I'm not mistaken, also Rav Hirsch, right, both of them write independently, that atheism is worse than Avodah Zarah. So that's one pirush. Rabbi Yonah brings a second pirush. Od nuchal lomar sheyesar hatov hu midat harachmanuth. Yesar hatov, one can serve Hashem by way of rahmanuth, mercy, compassion. So this leads a person, for instance, to give tzedakah to the needy. Compassion, rahmanuth. This leads a person to do gemilut hasadim, to help other people out in various ways. In all manner of things that another person may require or may be assisted by you. So that is midat harahmanuth, and that can be referred to as yasar hatov. V'yasar hara, continues Rabbi Yonah, v'yasar hara nivra la'achzariyuth. Yasar hara exists. There is a darker side to the human soul, such as the ability to be cruel towards another person. And that's yasar hara, and normally that's forbidden. However, there are situations where this is necessary. In other words, Hashem did not instill these midot, these capacities, these drives within the human soul without purpose. Sometimes it is necessary and very positive to be achzari, to be cruel, to be harsh, to be unforgiving, to be ruthless. When a person does not allow compassion to blur his vision, his moral clarity with regards to evil and evildoers, and acts towards them, behaves towards them in a unforgiving fashion, such a person is serving Hashem through the yasar hara, through the darker sides of the human soul, and this is necessary and positive, because as this is what Rabbi Yonah says, and this is precisely what Rambam was driving at, and in Hilchot Sanhedrin, over here, Perek Yud Halacha Zayin, when Rambam says, being unforgiving and dealing harshly and not allowing thoughts of mercy and compassion to weaken our resolve, because we all know that this thing is evil. This person, this phenomenon is evil and has to be dealt with as such. But because we're also rahamanim, and Jews need to hear this more than anybody else, because we are rahamanim, b'nei rahamanim. So our natural inclination as Jews, as Torah Jews, is to be merciful and compassionate and not be entirely ruthless and unforgiving towards evil. And it was this aspect of the Torah that Christianity, for example, took to the nth degree. And this is an ason, this is a disaster, this is a tragedy, and brings about terrible results for all of humanity, when that which is clearly evil is not dealt with as it must be dealt with. So when we act in this way towards the evil, Rambam says here, "Rahamim hi ba'olam." This is not evil. This is something very positive. So you think it's yasar hara, it's actually yasar hatov. It's like, as Rabbi Yonah says, this is doing the will of Hashem, because we are protecting the world and edifying the world by removing the evil from it, and rather than allowing the evil to flourish. All right, so that is essentially what we wanted to look at from Rabbi Yonah, and on this topic, and now we shall return to Hilchot Avodah Zarah, Perek Hamishi. And because we were talking about the idea of Masith or Madiah and how he is dealt with, Rambam takes up this discussion here in Hilchot Avodah Zarah, Perek Hamishi. And you should be able to see it now. Rambam says as follows: HaMesith Ehad Misrael, a person who incites and encourages a person from a Jew, man or woman, ben ish ben isha, to worship Avodah Zarah, as we discussed, Hare Zeh Niskal, such a person is to be put to death by the Beit Din if he's found guilty. Af al pi shelo avad hamusath v'lo hamesith Avodah Zarah. Even if, in fact, in practice, no Avodah Zarah was worshipped. He incited the person to do so, but it never happened for various reasons. This mesith is to be put to death. He's niskal, put to death by stoning. Ela mipnei shehorahu la'avod. So the act of hasatha does not include necessarily the act of Avodah Zarah. It is limited, the concept is limited to encouraging people to do so. Mipnei shehorahu la'avod. He instructed the person to do so. Ben shaya mesit hedyot, ben shaya navi. You may wonder why would you say such a thing, or why would you think that a navi could possibly do such a thing? Whether a hedyot is a regular person, ben shaya navi, or some kind of extremely spiritual and knowledgeable individual who is considered, obviously is not a navi emeth, he's not a true and faithful navi of Hashem, but he is viewed as a kind of navi, as some kind of great spiritual influence and master and teacher. Because it's fairly obvious, most people, most Jews, if they have an idea that Avodah Zarah and anything related to these things is not just asur, but the most serious infraction in the Torah, why would they follow such a person? Usually it is because the person who encourages them to do such a thing is a very charismatic and highly respected person. And he tells them, he convinces them that you may have thought this is wrong, but I'm telling you that this is correct, this is proper. Ben shaya hamusath yahid, ish or isha, or yahidim, whether the attempt was made to encourage and incite one person or many people, men or women. Mitatho bisqila. He is to be put to death by seqila, by stoning. So that the term mesith refers to attempting to do so with regards to individuals or many individuals. However, Rambam adds, HaMesith et rov anshe ha'ir, person did so vis-a-vis a majority of the inhabitants of the town. Hare ze madiah, such a person is called a madiah, ve'no nikra mesith. As we discussed in the previous chapter. So this is a very important idea and reality to understand. It is almost without fail people of above average capabilities, intelligence, spiritual awareness, and also leadership qualities that that can actually be such a person. Because usually any Reuven or Shimon comes along, any Tom, Dick, or Harry comes along and says, let's do such and such. Why would anyone pay any attention? But if he has a long beard and a very impressive hat, shall we say, and people relate stories about him all the time, how amazing and wonderful and insightful he is, and he spouts all kinds of teachings, some of which may be entirely in line with the Torah, but some of them may be completely the opposite of Torah and may lead people astray. It is precisely this kind of person who is likely or possibly a Mesith and a Madiach. So when you become aware of such a reality and people say, well, how can you say this about him? Or the people who follow him, because look at the wonderful things they do. They're very kind towards people, and they help out, and they set up these centers of Judaism all over the world, and make mass Sedarim, Leila Seder, Pesach for all these backpackers, which they do. And all that is true. But that is precisely what will cause most people not to see the underlying reality and the extreme danger involved in such people. I have no doubt, for example, that Yeshua Nusri, Hashem Rashayim Yerkov, was a very talented individual, apparently a very powerful personality, very charismatic, knowledgeable to at least some extent, but he was a Masif and a Madiach. And history speaks for itself, what resulted from his teachings. Again, you could say a lot of these people are very moral, upstanding people. That's entirely true. And that's positive. A person who follows Yeshua Nusri and is a kind person, first of all, is doing so not because that individual said so, but because the Torah states so, and he is influenced by what the Torah says, because that is part of the package in the first place. But certain other pernicious ideas were part of the message, and this led the entire world, or much of the world, astray. So there is also a positive side to this, as Rambam writes at the end of Hilchot Melachim u'Milchamot, that at least Christianity brought a certain knowledge of Hashem and of the Tanakh to large swaths of people in the world. But that message became very, very much entangled with other ideas and messages, which are totally disastrous. So therefore, it is necessary for us to hear what the Rambam writes here, that a Masith might be a regular person, but in fact is more likely to be some kind of Navi, some kind of spiritual teacher, and considered to be very outstanding and unique. Because it's precisely such people who tend to lose sight of who they are and what they are saying and what they are teaching and where it is leading. And they are basically a powerful spiritual energy that is out of control. And anything that is out of control is not a good thing. And We are discussing this today on Hei B'Tammuz, 2 days after Gimel B'Tammuz. And unfortunately, the message and the false teachings of a well-known Hasidic sect based in Brooklyn have become accepted and have infiltrated the minds and the hearts of many Jews, and we have to be aware of how serious a matter this is. And as we said before, the fact that these people may be very medakdek with miswoth, and they may cause other people to perform miswoth, and they set up a stand where they encourage people to put on tefillin, or to pick up Arbat Aminim on Sukkoth, or whatever it may be. This is all true, but it is not relevant. Not relevant at all. Keep in mind that all the original Minim mentioned by Hazar were Jews. And the Mishneh, both in Masechet Berachot and more specifically in Masechet Megillah, speaks about removing a person from being the Shaliach Sibur in the Beit Knesset because he's hashud as a mean, because we have reason to suspect that he is a mean. And why would we think such a thing about a person? He came to shul like everybody else, and he has a beard like everybody else, and he's wearing tefillin like everybody else. True, but we see that he has these strange notions which have no basis in the Torah, such as saying, I only daven when recite the Shmoneh Esrei when barefoot, as the Mishnah states over there, or is unwilling to recite Birkat Haminim, which was precisely enacted for this reason. So any indication that a person follows such ideologies, whatever else they may be doing or not doing, has no bearing on the question of whether they're a mean. And that is why I strongly suggest, and I've always said to people who have asked, not to buy tefillin or mezuzot from such person, or a Sefer Torah. Sefer Torah sheketavo min yisaref. That is the Halacha. Another harsh Halacha, ruthless, but uprooting minut from within Am Yisrael is trumps all other considerations, even burning a Sefer Torah. And once again, to understand the true nature and to correctly calibrate our attitudes towards various things, the very best guide is always the Halacha. The Halacha, as the Halacha is written, the Halacha is not just a set of instructions. Do this and don't do that. The Halacha is a set of instructions, of course, that this is mutar, and this is asur, and this is required, this is msuwa, and this is to be avoided. But it's all based on a system of ideas, on a value system, on a hierarchy of principles, and so that the halacha is an expression of an entire philosophical approach of the approach of the Torah. So if you want to know what does the Torah really think about something, then you look at the halacha, and you will walk away with great clarity. So if the Torah tells you, if the halacha tells you that tefillin written by a min are to be destroyed and must not be worn, well, then you know what the Torah thinks about such a person, without any reference to the question of whether he keeps Shabbat or not, and how many times a day he gives Sadaqah, and how many dapim of Gemara he learns every week. These are not the relevant considerations. If you want to know what is Minuth and what does this include, and if there is something like a Sefer Torah or Tefillin or a mezuzah written by such a person, if the Halacha is that you must destroy them, then you understand that that is an expression of the true essence of the matter and of the reality, and you should not allow anything else to blur your vision, and you must not lose that clarity.
Rabbi,
Yes.
if one were to receive a Sefer Torah from the group in question, would it be correct to burn it, or is there enough of a safek that it should only be put in the Genizah?
The halacha, which we can look at another time, is that Sefer Torah shekatavo min yisaref. So if you know that it was written by such a person, not that it was in the possession of such a person, but it was written by such a person, and that is the halacha, and by so doing, you are both removing a stumbling block, being mesir michshol, and you're also sending a very powerful message, precisely because doing such a thing is such a shocking act. Normally, that would be the worst thing you could do, to burn a Sefer Torah. But when you do it because of a given situation and circumstance, that is sending a very powerful message. And that exactly is what Idolatry is all about. It's sending a very, very a message that cannot be missed by anybody.
Rabbi?
Yes.
What if it is unclear whether the given member of the sect is a believer in the Mashiachist version, or perhaps doesn't believe in the said Rabbi being alive or Mashiach?
Before Torah Kula, we go according to the Rav. We go according to the majority. I believe there is no doubt that a clear majority, I would estimate it at being at least 80%, of people who claim to belong to such a group today adopt those beliefs, accept those ideas. All right, we continue. Halacha bet. Harei ze sheidiach rov ha'ir, I'm sorry, ze sheidiach rov ha'ir navi, mitatho biskila. This statement is correct. Mitatho biskila. If he was warned, if it was hatra'ah, that he is being a masif, that he is leading people astray. And if he was warned that he is things that he is saying he's being in the visheker, which is another concept which we have discussed in the past, then he's also put to death, but not biskila, but beheadek, by strangulation. Either way, such a person is a terrible influence, as we discussed. Wahanidahim, and those who are led astray, harehem ki yahidim, and they are considered like individuals who worship Avodah Zarah. Wenam kan she'ir nidahat, and they are not put to the sword, therefore, like kan she'ir nidahat, ad she'yu hamadihim shnaim, unless there were two people who do such a thing. In other words, the Torah speaks about two or more people in the plural of being madihim, of preaching and misleading people and causing them to do such a thing. وهذا أمر أمراري عبودة زراء يفدوها או שאמר לי הקודש ברוך הוא, עבדו עבודה זרה, הרי זה נביא שהדיח. Whether the person involved said, this deity spoke to me and said, worship me and tell people to worship me, or whether he claims that Hashem himself spoke to him and said, worship this or do this. Such a person is considered a Navi Shehidiah, who led people astray. And if most of the people of a town followed his lead, then he is executed as a Madiah. Gimel, Hamesit Sheisith, Ben B'Lashon Rabim, Ben B'Lashon Yahid, Harei Ze Niskal. It doesn't matter how he voiced and in what terms he spoke, plural, singular. If this was the outcome, he's considered a Masith. For example, Kesat Ha'omer Lahaviro Avodah Avodah Zarah Elech Ve'Avodah, or I am going to worship this Avodah Zarah, or adopt this ideology. Elech Ve'Avodah, I will go and do so. Nelech Ve'Avodah, in the plural, let us go and do this. And he was suggesting to do this pertains more to specific kinds of Avodah Zarah, where there is a particular Avodah that is usually associated with it. All of those statements count as acts of Hasata and Hadaha. Ezbah, Elech Ezbah, Nelech Nizbah. Again, let us go and do bring a korban, a sacrifice, singular, plural. Akater, elech akater. This refers to incense. Nelech unakater. Anasech, elech anasech. Nisuch has to do with libation of wine. Nelech unanasech. It doesn't matter how he worded it. Ashtahawe, elech v'ashtahawe, nelech v'ashtahawe. Harezem nisit. All of these. Any such statement is a statement of Hasatha and Hadafa. Continues Rambam. Hisit Nishnaim. Hare hen Idav Wahen Vivim Otho Leved Din. So such a person turned to two people and attempted to preach and encourage these people to adopt this ideology and this practice. They can also act, and they realize what's going on. They're not taken in by him, and they themselves can bring him to the Beit Din, and they can act as the witnesses against him. And they are also involved in putting this person to death in the act of execution. Now, it may be that he was warned, but it might be that he was not warned. Now, normally, with capital offenses, there has to be hatra'ah. The person has to be informed just before he committed this act, any such capital offense, that this thing is asur, and you're liable to be put to death for doing it. In the case of a mesit, as we discussed, as we saw in Hilchot Sanhedrin Perek Yud Aleph, this is not required. In a mesit tzarich hatra'ah. Amar la'ehad, hu omer lo yesh li haverim rosim b'chach. U'ma'arim alahu ad sheyasit b'fnei shnayim. So let's say there was a mesit, and he turned to one person and encouraged him to adopt this ideology, to act in a certain way, to place a certain picture on the wall, etc., whatever it may be. But one person cannot give testimony alone. He's allowed to mislead and entrap this person by saying to him, "Yesh li haverim rosim b'chach." I know people who are interested, who will be very interested in what you're saying. and entraps him and causes him to say this in front of two people. So there will now be two witnesses. In order to bring him to the Beit Din and have him executed. Again, why would a person do this? Why wouldn't a person just turn away and say he's crazy and he's off his rocker, and I'll ignore him and go on with my day? The answer is because we said before, because this is a very, very dangerous and unforgivable reality within the Jewish people. It can take off like wildfire, as we all see. So much so that you can find the fact that certain people go to a certain grave on a certain day of the year a major item on the news in the evening. That alone tells you how such things can take off and find a place in the minds and the hearts of many people, because many people are not wise enough and not strong enough to see the reality for what it is. So any Jew who's faced with such a thing has to fight and has to act in accordance with these concepts and these halachot in order to protect Am Yisrael from such things. So that is why it is mutar l'ha'arim. L'ha'arim is to entrap, to mislead, by subterfuge, to cause this person to become a masit in front of two. But let's say the person didn't want to do this. Miswa, not just allowed, it's a miswa, lahachmin lo. In other words, to, if possible, engineer a situation where he will speak to you in private, shall we say. He will think no one can hear, and you will somehow hide, behind the curtain to witnesses who will hear what he's saying, and then you will be able to take him to bring him before a Beit Din. This is not only mutar to do so, which is asur, not to be done in any other kind of capital case. Here it is a mitzvah to do so. And this was also mentioned briefly by Rambam over there in Hilchot Sanhedrin. Kol hayaveh mithos shebat Torah en mechamenim alehem chutz mizeh. There is no other case in the Torah, no other halacha, no other transgression, where we are told that is a mitzvah, a positive and necessary and correct thing, and very proper to entrap and to cause a person to incriminate themselves, because the essential idea here is not just to bring a person to justice because of something he may have done. It's not like a case of murder. We're talking about protecting Klal Yisrael from the most pernicious and deleterious realities and actions and suggestions and teachings. Because the fact is, these people, these ideas, these practices, these teachings can and do lead many people seriously astray. Avodah Zarah, as Rambam writes in Moreh Nevuchim, is the uprooting of Avodah Zarah. And as we said before, Avodah Zarah is not just worshipping and bowing down to an idol. It includes atheism and all manner of anti-Torah ideologies. Uprooting and destroying Avodah Zarah in the world, and first of all, foremost, from within Am Yisrael, is the main thrust of the Torah. The Torah speaks about these matters more than any other matter. That is the main thrust of the Torah in this world, as Rambam discusses in Moreh Nevuchim. And therefore discussing and understanding these things and being aware and not allowing yourself to be taken in by such things, and by the fact that many people have already been taken in and are living in a some kind of quasi Torah reality, but in fact have been led astray from the Torah in a very serious manner. This is something that we must always bear in mind. We shall end here for today. Hayu beruchim hizku liyames levavchem kol hameyachalim l'Adonai. Shalom u'nisaha.
Thank you, Rabbi Bar-Hayim. We would like to encourage our viewers to share these videos with friends and send in your responses. We would also like to suggest the following opportunity to our viewers. If you identify with Rabbi Bar-Hayim's message and would like to sponsor or dedicate a video interview with the rabbi in honor or memory of a loved one, if you would like to obtain Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael or invite the rabbi for a speaking engagement, please email us at office@machonshilo.org.